In 1982, the Los Angeles Lakers spent the #1 overall pick on a 6'9" forward out of North Carolina. He'd just won a national championship, sealed it with one of the most famous steals in college basketball history, and now he was walking straight into the most star-studded locker room in the sport. Magic Johnson was already there. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was already there. A 3-time NBA champion in Jamal Wilkes was already starting at his own position. So when James Worthy showed up, almost nobody was talking about him. He wasn't the flashy one. He wasn't the towering legend everybody built the offense around. He was just the new guy who was supposed to fit in quietly and not step on anyone's toes. But the man who coached him for 9 years, the man who won 4 championships standing on that sideline, eventually said something that should have completely changed how basketball fans talk about James Worthy. Pat Riley didn't just call him good. He didn't just call him a champion, or a Hall of Famer, or a great teammate. He said Worthy was the best small forward who had ever played the game, and the best one who ever would. Nobody really listened, and here we are, decades later, still not listening. Welcome to Hoop Detailing. Let's get started. To understand just how heavy Riley's words actually are, you first have to understand exactly what James Worthy was walking into back in 1982. Worthy grew up in Gastonia, North Carolina, became a McDonald's All-American, and landed at North Carolina to play for Dean Smith. In 1982, he led the Tar Heels to the national championship, dropping 28 points on an absurd 13 for 17 shooting in the title game against Georgetown, then sealing the win himself with a late steal off an errant inbound pass. He walked away as the most outstanding player of that Final Four, and shared National College Player of the Year honors that same season. And sitting on that very same North Carolina roster, playing a supporting role behind him, was a freshman named Michael Jordan. Even back then, before he'd played a single NBA minute, a pattern was already forming. Be the best player in the room, and somehow still end up standing in someone else's shadow. It's been said plainly that despite his greatness, it was simply Worthy's fate to be overshadowed by more celebrated teammates. Jordan in college, and then Abdul-Jabbar and Magic Johnson once he turned pro. The Lakers took him first overall that summer, and he landed on a roster that had already won a championship the year before. Anchored by Abdul-Jabbar in the middle, run by Magic at the point, and already featuring one of the league's better small forwards in Jamal Wilkes. Worthy wasn't just joining a good team, he was joining a team that, on paper, didn't obviously need him. His rookie a decade in Los Angeles, Worthy helped build one of the greatest dynasties the league has ever seen. 3 championships in 1985, 1987, and 1988, and 7 trips to the NBA Finals across his career, according to his own Hall of Fame bio. But here's the part that gets lost every single time this story gets told. On a team built around Magic's no-look passes and Kareem's unstoppable skyhook, James Worthy was never treated like the headline. He was the finisher. The guy who caught the alley-oop, not the guy who threw it. That label, third option, complimentary piece, one of the other guys on Showtime, followed him for the rest of his career. Honestly, it's still following him into how we remember him today. So let's actually pull up what James Worthy did on a basketball court, because the numbers tell a very different story than role player. For his career, Worthy averaged 17.6 points, 5.1 rebounds, and 3 assists a night, shooting north of 52% from the field. Respectable, sure, but not the kind of line that jumps off the page. Except here's the thing. James Worthy wasn't built for the regular season. He was built for the postseason, and it genuinely wasn't close. His career playoff averages, 21.1 points and 5.2 rebounds a night, were actually higher than his regular season numbers. That's a jump almost no star in NBA history makes. Most guys tighten up when the games get bigger. Worthy expanded. That's exactly why they called him Big Game James. And no single game defined that nickname better than Game 7 of the 1988 NBA Finals against a genuinely brutal Detroit Pistons team. Across that entire series, Worthy averaged 22 points, 7.4 rebounds, and 4.4 assists, earning himself Finals MVP honors. But Game 7 was the true masterpiece. It was the only triple-double of his career, and he saved it for the biggest stage imaginable. 36 points, 16 rebounds, 10 assists, closing out the Pistons, and clinching a repeat title for Los Angeles. Sit with that for a second. The single biggest game of his career. Win or go home. A back-to-back championship on the line, against one of the most physical defenses the league has ever produced, and James Worthy delivered a 36-point triple-double. That is not a role player's stat line. That's a franchise cornerstone stat line, on the sport's biggest posted in a 5-game playoff series. An absurd .721, set in the 1985 Western Conference Finals against Denver. He made 7 All-Star teams. He was named to both the NBA's 50th anniversary team and, decades later, its 75th anniversary team. He was inducted into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame in 2003, and his number 42 hangs in the rafters in Los Angeles, one of only a handful of jerseys the Lakers have ever retired. This was not a sidekick standing in the corner waiting for a pass. This was one of the most dominant winners of his entire generation. Which brings us to Pat Riley, the coach who watched all of it unfold up close, night after night, for 9 straight seasons. Riley ran the Lakers from 1981 to 1990, winning 4 championships, and essentially inventing the Showtime identity from scratch. He coached Magic Johnson in his prime. He coached Kareem Abdul-Jabbar through the twilight of his. Years later, he'd go on to coach Patrick Ewing in New York, then Dwayne Wade and Shaquille O'Neal in Miami. This is a man who has coached some of the greatest players who have ever lived. So when it came time for him to answer, honestly, who the best small forward he'd ever coached or seen actually was, Riley didn't hedge for a second. I don't think there has been, or will be, a better small forward than James, and I don't think people appreciated that. Go back and read that again. Not one of the best. Not underrated for his era. Riley said there has never been, and there never will be, a better small forward than James Worthy. From a coach who's had a front row seat to nearly 50 years of professional basketball. That's about as close to a final official verdict as this sport ever gets. And Riley wasn't just saying it once for a headline. Decades later, at Riley's own statue unveiling outside the Lakers arena, surrounded by Magic, Kareem, and the rest of Showtime royalty, Worthy's own words about Riley explain exactly why that respect ran both directions. He was tough. There was a time when players wouldn't accept the truth, but they would accept where the coach was coming from, because the video did moment just to get more out of him, turning around years later and calling that exact same player the greatest to ever play his position. That's not flattery. That's a hardened, battle-tested evaluator giving his honest, unfiltered final answer. So if the coach who literally built Showtime is telling us nobody appreciated James Worthy, why does that still feel true today? Particle Jordan, his own former college teammate, about to completely redefine what a wing player could be. Worthy retired in 1994, right as Jordan's Bulls were mid-dynasty, and from that point on, the best small forward ever conversation got permanently rewritten around Jordan, then Scottie Pippen, then Bird's legacy retroactively, then decades later, LeBron James. There was never a clean moment where that question got asked, without an answer that already felt obvious. Worthy simply never got inserted into it, even though the man who coached him for 9 years thought he belonged right at the very top. Worthy was never chasing a scoring title. He was averaging around 17.5 points on a stacked roster in the regular season, then raising his game to 21 a night in the playoffs, across 3 separate championship runs. That kind of efficient, winning-first production tends to get undervalued in an era obsessed with box scores over actual winning. Even Worthy himself still carries that old-school edge Riley drilled into him. Years after his playing career ended, when you come out and get out-rebounded, offensive rebound after offensive rebound, you can sniff out weakness. And that's what the Celtics did, end quote. That's a Hall of Famer still holding today's Lakers to the exact standard Riley once held him to. Whatever respect Riley gave him, Worthy is still trying to pass forward. James Worthy did just about everything you're supposed to do to be remembered forever with his name on it. And on top of all of it, the sworn testimony of the coach who watched every or sometimes doesn't come up at all. Pat Riley told us the truth, in plain English, more than once. Nobody listened. Maybe it's finally time we did. If this video opened your eyes to just how criminally underrated James Worthy really was, do me a favor and hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel grow. Subscribe to Hoop Detailing if you want more deep dives into the players basketball history keeps overlooking, and drop a comment down below telling me who deserves this same treatment next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.